share screen with school and hope for the so YouTube, good luck. I'm going to prioritize school. All right, so today's itinerary, I'm going to talk a little bit about our team structure here from the acquisition side to the admin side, so just the daily admin of our business, to the dispo side, management side, and I'll get into the details on the remodeling parts of the business. And really, I wanted to use the whiteboard today because that's the best way to kind of draw out the flow, because everything moves in a conveyor belt. And this is both for me and for you guys. About every quarter, I like to do this. I draw the entire conveyor belt for the business, and I like to pinpoint for every part of the conveyor belt what is the one thing I want to measure to know if they're doing well. So for our business, it'll loosely flow from acquisitions to the execution on the remodel side to management long term. So those are the kind of three areas, and then the other category is really admin. But the best way to show it is to start drawing it out. While I'm drawing all this out, if y'all want to type your questions or just jump in at any moment, that's why I did this setup. So it's kind of like a what's a word? Socratic seminar. I don't know if any of you guys ever had to take one of those classes in high school or college where you're supposed to interrupt. So y'all are supposed to interrupt at any point while I'm drawing this out, and let's get to it. So I'm gonna start with the acquisition side, and I'll get Antonio to jump in a good amount here because the acquisitions that's Antonio's baby. It is his main thing he does all day. So talking about kind of person and responsibility, Antonio is in charge of the acquisition side of things. I'm, as far as the acquisitions goes, in charge of more of the back end for acquisitions. But when I draw it out, y'all get to it. So starting with acquisitions, the best way to represent it is just start with what exactly acquisitions is going after. So these are houses, just houses that are not on the MLS. These are owner occupied, landlords, stuff like that. These are just houses that are off market on the MLS. Acquisition's responsibility is taking these and getting them under contract, but specifically the distressed homeowners of this category. So our marketing is all based around getting these houses under contract. So for marketing, we have cold calling. So I'll do cold calling. Forgive my handwriting. I'll post a transcript after so you can just read what I was typing, see how that's showing up. It's a bit of a glare. So can you guys see that, or is there a bit of a glare? Yeah, let's try this. Let me move it a little closer. Let me try this. Let me move her a little closer. Oh yeah, wait, let's see. I think I can just present. Let's see. Intervals. Nope. Let's try this. Pin for everyone. What about now? Okay, cool. Glare's a little rough. We'll make it work. This is cold calling. To represent cold calling, I'll draw like a little phone. Okay. This was our first marketing channel we started with. Why was it our first? Because it is the cheapest marketing channel and the easiest one to get going. You literally just pull a list and get calling. As far as the most beginner way to get into cold calling, you can pull government lists, some our favorite lists, water shutoffs, code violations, and the way you pull those is going to be different for every county. You have Claude, you have ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT or Claude how to pull it for your county specifically. And then as far as getting the phone numbers for those properties, you can use a service like Batch Dialer, Batch Leads, Batch Leads to pull the numbers, Batch Dialer to actually call the numbers, or the free method, but most time intensive, is truepeoplesearch.com. So you pull the water and code and manually plug in truepeoplesearch.com. It'll take you a lot of time, but you can get deals doing it this way. It is the most manual and most time intensive way, but it is the cheapest way to start getting discounted off market deals for burr investing or wholesaling. You can also text, but in my experience, a lot of people get spammed with text. So most of the time, we don't like to text that much. A2P as well kind of changes that depending on the year, how well texting works. But Back to cold calling. Nowadays, how we run cold calling, we use a multi-line dialer. So batch dialer is how we cold call now. It is still really, really cheap. The thing of cold calling is because it is the cheapest and most like entry level way to start calling houses, most friendly. It'll be your highest ROI, but least consistent. So that's in our experience, highest ROI as in we put in $10, it makes us $100. Whereas most of our marketing channels, we put in $10, makes us $30. I'm using $10 to keep it simple, but that's for cold calling and all it is. So right now, our setup. So I'll talk about our setup. It'll be a little too much to talk about what it was versus what it is now. So I'll talk about our setup, and if you guys have questions about what it should look like for maybe the volume y'all are at, just jump in at any point. But our setup now, we have a team of 4 cold callers. They're VAs. So virtual assistants, we got 4 virtual assistants. There they are. I didn't really think out how I was going to draw everything, so y'all are just going to get to witness my creativity in real time. So here are 4 cold callers, and they are using a batch dialer, which has a multi-line dialer to make each one of them roughly 2,000 to 3,000 calls a day. If we start to burn through lists too quickly, we'll lower that, so they'll only do 2 lines at a time. But these VAs are calling these off-market houses. We lead with the list I talked about, the water and code. They're calling the water and code, and then government lists like tax delinquencies, and then we're going after high equity vacant. And then from there, we start to get wider and wider lists to keep the callers busy, basically. So we start with the most motivated list and we move down. From there, we use PropStream to pull the big list. Every single list we pull, the team calls 3 to 6 times. That is our SOP and requirement. They have to call the list 3 to 6 times. So these 4 VAs, every day they clock in at 2 p.m. and they call until 7 p.m. Every now and then they change their shift from like 1 to 6 if they have scheduling conflicts. And the person managing these VAs is actually our VA manager. Oh, echo. So he is going to have a big role here. So our VA manager, all right, that shows up, is managing these VAs, and he is also pulling our lists. Man, yeah, is it backwards for you guys? All right, cool. So our VA manager is managing all the cold calling VAs, and he's also doing our list pulling. List pulling. This will be recorded and posted as well. So, all right. So so the routine for list, he pulls water and code bi-weekly. He logs into our county portal to request water and code. For every county, it's going to be different. Sometimes the utility company sometimes water company is through the county. Sometimes it's through like a privately owned company. The privately owned companies typically are much harder to work with. So the counties where you go through the city to get water turned on, it'll be much easier to get water and code. But he's pulling water and code bi-weekly. He's pulling tax delinquents roughly every month. We're constantly looking for the new ones getting thrown on that list. He's pulling high equity vacant about every 2 months. What are the other ones? He's pulling our low equity list, so like subject to stuff, every 3 months. He's pulling tired landlords every 3 months. That's a big list. I love the tired landlords list because if you find one tired landlord who has a big portfolio, he's wanting to get out of real estate, he's wanting to liquidate, you can be set up for deals for straight up a year. Antonio, talk about Zuspin Rentals, the relationship you have with them and how many deals we bought from him in the timeline. Yes, tired landlord. Yeah. So, and also a lot of things, a lot of these landlords, tired landlords, they don't want to sell their whole portfolio at once because they don't want to have to deal with that massive tax liability all at once. So what a lot of them will do, will sell little groupings. So that's what he's been doing. when we're ready to buy more, typically he's ready to sell more. So it's been a fantastic relationship. Every market's different, but for us, our top three lists: water shutoff, code violation, tired landlords. Those three are goaded from both wholesaling and Burr investing for growing our portfolio, and Burr and wholesaling. Those lists have been fantastic. So that's cold calling. My honest opinion on cold calling now, it's not my favorite just because it's very inconsistent for us, but it's so cheap. We could go 4 months of no deals from cold calling, then all of a sudden lock up 5, 6, 7 contracts out of nowhere. A lot of times with cold calling as well, the ROI is in the follow up. So getting into follow up, I'm gonna talk about our other marketing channels, but just to keep on the conveyor belt for our cold calling, I want to talk about our follow up specialists. When you're cold calling, so I'm gonna say Fuss right here. This is our follow up specialist. When you're cold calling, you will find the majority of leads you get are junk leads. It's just people, they'll say something along the lines of, when you ask them, hey, would you sell your house? Would you take a cash offer for your house? They're like, yeah, if the offer is good. So you'll get a lot of cold leads that are just people wanting to hear an offer on your house. You, as you're scaling, doing more deals, don't want to be speaking to people who just are interested in what you want to, are interested in what you can pay for their house. You want to be talking to people who are motivated to sell. So for us, the follow-up specialist we hired after roughly 2 years of Antonio being the one who manually is qualifying all of these cold leads. And it got to the point where Antonio was probably making close to 300 calls a day, where 70 to 80% of them were just people, yeah, sure, give me an offer. And they're expecting like $1 million for a $100,000 home. When we did the math on it, only like 20 to 30 of his phone calls a day were to people who are ready to sell. So by him having to speak to all these unmotivated sellers from both the cold calling and from the follow-up, so following up with leads that are not quite ready to sell, we were losing out on opportunities. So we hired what's called a follow-up specialist, who is the filter for the leads these cold callers generate. So these are just homeowners, cold callers are calling, they generate leads. Leads are anybody who says yes to the question, yes, I'd sell my house for an offer. They just want an offer. That's a wide category. Like the criteria for a lead from cold calling is wide, and it's intentional because I don't want homeowners talking to our VAs very long, because the longer they talk to a VA, the more they can pick up on this is some guy in the Philippines. So we keep it short. Just, hey, would you take an offer from my boss, Antonio? Yes, pass it on. Then it gets passed to our follow-up specialist, who's much more qualified. So these leads, I'll put leads. Okay, these leads move to the follow-up specialist, who is much more qualified to talk to homeowners. Our follow-up specialist, his name is Alex, and he is in our CRM. He is the person who all these leads get routed to. So Antonio doesn't get notified when a calling lead comes in. It goes to our follow-up specialist. Our follow-up specialist qualifies the lead, and if it is an actual person who is within reason on the price they want for their property, they will hand it off to Antonio. So I'm going to give Antonio, well, this is Antonio down here, and I will also talk about the whole follow-up sequence and like who does what for the follow-ups. So I'll get to that. So whenever the follow-up specialist, he'll kick out a lot of junk leads. And another thing, the follow-up specialist, his training is that anybody who he speaks to that is not motivated to sell yet, he does not get rid of them in our CRM. Our CRM is where we manage all our leads, unless they tell him, never call me again, or the house has been sold. So when Alex speaks to these leads, two things will either happen. The lead will either be completely uninterested, so he doesn't want to waste Antonio's time, so he'll just put them into the CRM for following up with. So I'll just put this, he sends it to the CRM. We use Podio, but it's built out like crazy. So I know a lot of people use there's so many different CRMs nowadays, but for us, Podio's what's worked, and we actually used Martin with Arata Systems to customize it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Podio is just the most. You can just customize it so much. It's most bare bones, and it handles volume really well. So we rock the podium. Back to the follow specialist. So when he speaks to a lead, if they're like, I want $1 million for my $100,000 home, he doesn't junk the lead. He still puts it in the CRM and says, follow up in a year. And he'll put his little notes in there. If the person, say the home is worth 125, and they're like, yeah, I'd be interested in an offer for around 120, he immediately sends it down to Antonio, because Antonio is much, much, much more skilled than even Alex at closing sellers. So if they're within the ballpark of like they want the Zillow asking price, he's trained to send it to Antonio because Antonio can get people like that down. Now, Antonio's role, when he gets sent these leads, Antonio, what do you do? You get a lead. Yeah. 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 And another thing on that, so the follow-up specialist, his daily routine, any new leads coming in from calling, he's filtering them. On top of his daily routine, he's following up with not only leads Antonio has spoken to. So when Antonio speaks to these hot leads, the ones he either gets them under contract. So two things will happen. Either option route one, he goes under contract. Okay. So he speaks to a lead, it'll either go under contract. They say, no, not at this time. So it goes to follow up. So just, I'll do FU for follow up. Or there's three things that happen. They say, never call me again, or the house was sold. So then just, it is actually gone. Never call me again, or the house is sold. Ryan, what's his name? Serhart. Is that Ryan Serhart, the realtor guy? Here's a clip of him going around. It's really viral of just, I follow people and follow up with people until they say yes or they die. So he doesn't even take no's as a reason to get them out of CRM. But that's what Antonio does with the lead. So house is sold, or they say never speak to me again. Follow up, schedules to follow up, or it goes under contract. Those are the only three things that can happen from these leads. When they get marks to follow up, is Antonio the one following up with them? No, because if he gets, say, 5 new leads a day and 4 of them are marked to follow up, after a year, he has an impossible number of follow-ups to keep up with. So all of his follow-ups are the responsibility of our friend here, Alex, the follow-up specialist. So you guys kind of see how that works. So just from one marketing channel, this is the flow. So I'm gonna go through it one more time just because my handwriting's sloppy. And yes. Correct. I would say, I mean, like Antonio, 90% of deals are done on the follow up. They happen after the 12th follow up. I've seen the CRM. There's been deals that Antonio's gotten under contract after the 60th follow up that have been there for 3 years. That's what really separates. So for those of you trying to wholesale, that's the easiest way to separate yourself from wholesalers and burr investors. Say it, whether it's seller leads or realtors or wholesalers, the one who follow ups is the one who gets the deal. And all it takes for you to be in like top 10% of investors in your market is just following up with the realtor, the wholesaler, or the seller themselves. So the follow ups, it's the simplest thing to do, but people just skip it. A lot of people think they have a lead problem, so they'll get 10 leads in a day and they won't close any of the leads, and they'll think they just need to get more leads. But the reality is, there's nothing wrong with those 10 leads. They just need time for those leads to mature in their CRM until they're ready to be closed. So when we've launched new markets, what we have learned is it takes a solid 6 months for you to get any ROI on sourcing off market deals, because That's how long it takes for your CRM to be filled with leads that you have to follow up with. So very rarely do we one-shot deals. I mean, they happen where they call in and we immediately lock them up, but it's not what our business is built around. It's built around this flow here. Correct. And I want to I'm going to run back through here and I'm going to also break down the number of daily hours each of our employees are putting in. So you can also see how leveraged Antonio is here. Cold callers. Each one of these cold callers are calling a minimum of 5 hours a day. We stick to just about 5 hours a day. So I say minimum, but every now and then they will want to jump in and do more. So we got 5 hours a day times four. That's 20 hours a day worth of calling being done by our team right here. What do we pay them? We pay them $5 an hour plus $15 an appointment plus $40 a closing. In the Philippines, that is very generous. What's it called? Pay structure. So they get paid that rate. And then another thing on the cold callers, I'll get into it, but we do have inbound callers for all of our SEO, PPC, stuff like that. But our VA manager, then the one making sure they clock in, pulling lists, assigning them lists, and also auditing their calls. So I don't listen to their phone calls. Our VA manager has instructions on auditing them once a week. And what we do actually, whoever was the best on the phone. So sometimes we don't even incentivize just on leads. If we hear a cold caller has been doing really well on the phone, like they're getting a lot of positive responses, he's trained to mark one gold star caller a week. So then not only are the VAs motivated by getting more houses under contract, they're motivated by getting the gold star caller. So then they get an extra extra appointment bonus. And we find that helps because sometimes you go through a slow season of cold callers and it's hard to keep them motivated to keep on sounding cheery on the phone when they're not closing deals. So we implemented that. So the VA manager, he works roughly 5 hours a day, just kind of overseeing everything. Nothing crazy. So we got 25 hours of work getting done before it even reaches our follow-up specialist. Follow-up specialist, he's working a more full day, 8 to 10 hours if he's really grinding. His pay structure, he gets paid $300 a week plus 3% of every deal we close. So he's paid for the Philippines extremely generously. So $300 a week plus 3% of every deal. So if it's a Burr deal we are buying, we roughly just kick him back $300. And then if it's a wholesale deal, 3% of the wholesale fee. So that's his hours, 8 to 10. And then Antonio, for acquisitions, I'll say it's about 8 to 10. For everything outside of the business, Antonio, I know you put in like 16-hour days. So that's a different conversation. So that's the whole flow, reviewing it. I'm just going to speed run our other marketing channels just because I don't want to, what is it? It's 6:25. We're doing all right on time. But I'll save future lives to go more into depth of our other marketing channels. But mailing, okay, we got mail, same thing, mailing to homeowners. So we do the same list we call, except for our mailing. We actually like to outsource to a company called REI Print just because they handle the whole process. We like it. It's kind of a done for you mailing service. We know it's more expensive than other services, but like our time is valuable and I would rather have them handle it. And we used to have the flow for mailing. We used to send the letters and then we had a inbound VA team for when people call in, because if you send 5,000 letters, they all land roughly within the same 2 weeks. You physically cannot answer all those calls. It gets crazy. So you have to have someone who qualifies them, so an inbound VA. But with REI Print, we switched. We know it's more expensive, but they have a 16-hour a day inbound VA staff. So we do that. They send our mail. They pull lists. They use some AI data. Look, if you guys are looking for different companies to run your marketing, just be skeptical. Everybody saying AI data this or that, it's all the same list at the end of the day. Don't get sold by that stuff, but still with that, we just trust their list and we tell them generally the list we want to pull or the areas we want to target. They handle our mailing. Mailing is our most expensive marketing. I think this year to date, actually, Antonio, I pulled this. We spent close to, we're at like 86 grand on the year for mailing. Yeah, I'll have to pull it, but like we spend a lot on mailing. We've cut back. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we wanted to see what the upper limit where we started return get diminishing returns was, and it turns out it's around 12 grand a month per market. So like this per market, about 100,000 people is where you start to get diminishing return. But mailing is our most consistent. So month after month, it almost always get us, five-ish deals, but 3 to 5 depending. But mailing is our most expensive way to get deals. So calling, cheapest, highest ROI, least consistent. Mailing, most expensive, lowest ROI. So we put in $1, we get $3 out. Least consistent, least predictable. Next one, my favorite, is SEO and PPC. I'll group them together. I'll be quick with it. We have a website. It's ranked in Google for search words like "sell my house fast," "need to sell my house fast." For our market, we spent a lot of money on building out our website. We paid $30,000 to get our website built and 1 year of SEO. So build the website, 1 year of SEO. You can divide that by 12. It's really not that terrible. They did a good job with it. We probably overpaid. That was about a year and a half. Yeah, but we got our ROI because you'll get very few leads, but the leads you do get are super high intent. These are people literally Googling how to sell my house fast. That'll populate you leads from SEO and PPC. It is just finding people who are Googling how can I get rid of my house, or I just inherited a house, or how to deal with probate, stuff like that. And one thing, this is leads coming to us. So these leads, mailing and SEO PPC, skip the follow-up specialist and go straight to Antonio. I'm really making this messy because they're so much more motivated. These leads are so much more motivated, so they don't even go through the follow-up specialist because we know they convert so much more often. So we don't want to waste any of their time. Get them straight to Antonio. The last one I'll touch on for today is PPL. We do SMA as well, social media ads. Very similar to, well, actually a little different than SEO PPC because people are not searching you out, but leads, we do ads on Facebook. They fill out a form. We get notified, go straight to Antonio because it's higher intent because they have to fill out a form. PPL, paper lead companies. A note on paper lead companies. If you're spending a lot of money on PPC, check the PPL company. Ask them, do you use organic sites or do you use PPC ads? If you're in a small market and you're running PPC and PPL, they will cannibalize each other. As in, whatever you spend on PPC will directly impact your cost for the PPL company, and they compete with each other. So if you do PPL, make sure they use organic, not paid. Important distinction. So that way they don't conflict. I could digress on that more, but I won't. PPL as well goes straight to Antonio. All right. So that's our acquisitions flow. Any questions on this before I move on to what happens after a place gets under contract? Oh, check the chat. Yes. For two cold callers, it depends on the market. I would safely say be fully okay with 3 months, nothing happening. But like realistically, being emotionally game for a 6 to 9 month run of no deals because it takes so long for the first one. But after the first one, the second, third, and fourth come so much quicker. So there's just so many kinks. Is what's going to happen? You're going to get a lead. You're going to get a house under contract. You're going to walk a house, and it's going to seem so close to getting a deal, and then it falls through. And that's where most people quit. They get 1 or 2 houses under contract. They walk 1 or 2 houses, and falls through. They quit. So I would say, yeah, that's the timeline. Best case scenario, 3 months. Realistically, 6 to 9 months. For yeah, sub 300,000 population, median household income below 50,000. Um, the other stats, hold on. Median home price under 250,000, and then renters. Yeah, yeah, and then rent housing units, half or more being rental housing units. That's make sure. There's a few other stats I know you can pull from the Census Bureau. That's just not coming to the top of my mind. But there's a module in the school community you can go through. But what you're looking for are pocket markets and workforce housing. So you're looking for pocket markets backed by industry, manufacturing jobs, because what we care about is stability more than we care about appreciation. We're not buying in markets because there's an AI data center coming to it. We're buying in markets that have had industry here for the last 50 years and are going to have industry here for the next 50 years. We're rock solid backbone of America, way less competitive, way less companies coming in and buying on the hopes of everything being worth more one day. We like those just boring middle, not middle of nowhere, but outside of major city, at least an hour. That's our bread and butter, our pocket markets. And I'm stealing that from Mr. Patrick Rigg, PMR Properties. He's got 2,000 plus units, and he's built his entire 20-year run on that, and he's got $60 million plus portfolio, and that's his whole thing. He doesn't touch major cities. He stays far, far away. All right. Um, what's that? Every week. So at the end of the week, whenever we send out their pay, I send out pay on Monday for our cold callers. I just pull. Actually, I use Claude to pull the appointments, and I have this little sheet. I track their KPIs. How many leads did they get me? How many appointments? Every Monday. So if they got me an appointment on last Tuesday, I send it out on Monday. Did either myself, our GM, uh, or realtor, did someone walk the property? Was there actual boots on the ground on my team walking the property? If you get a house under contract but you didn't walk the property as well, I'd count that as an appointment. We give them pay breaks. We're really chill with our VAs. Like if they need, like for holidays, we always give them paid holidays, like around Christmas time and U.S. holidays, they get time off, and we pay them for that as well. We also give them Christmas bonuses. So typically, like we'll give them a full week off for Christmas, and they give them 2 weeks of pay. So we try to overpay just because I think most wholesalers and investors who hire VAs in the Philippines kind of disrespect them, underpay them. So it doesn't take much to really make their month, make their year. So we try to pay them as much as we can when we can. Yeah, honestly, we've had extremely high retention. We've a lot of our VAs have worked for us for more than 2 years. If anything, when it comes on our end, we notice with VAs, first 3 months they're amazing, and then you really got to keep on them to keep that quality. So every now and then we have to rotate VAs out. So we have four. It's kind of like don't be the slowest runner. You're being chased by a bear. The fourth one, whoever's. Sometimes we have to be pretty brutal with it. Like all four could be doing pretty good, and it's just been we got to rotate it up. We just have to replace the slowest VA and just constantly trying to push that standard up. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, the deal's got to close. So for the bonus, yeah, it's got to officially close. Um, I've accidentally paid bonuses early before just because I'm for there's a period of time where I was kind of out of the loop on everything. We didn't have clear procedures on stuff, and I've sent the bonus when a deal was scheduled to close but didn't actually close. So I always just go to actual closing date. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's normally when I start getting one just not clocking in on time. So if I have my VA manager give me a report, clock in times, clock out. I normally, if they're getting me 2 leads a day and they're clocking in on time, I don't even think about that. But when I start to get consistent notifications from our manager that like people are clocking in late or not doing a full shift or they weren't dialing, sleeping on the phone, I have listened to the call recordings. I'm like, oh, I wonder how they're doing this week. And I go to like listen to a voicemail they left, and it's just a person snoring. So Stuff like that. I like to give people one or two passes because you got to remember the time zones. It's difficult for them. When stuff like that starts to happen, then I just start to, you know, clip and rotate. Okay. We've had a few. Yeah. On onlinejobs.ph. It's like 60 bucks a month. It is goaded. I've hired video editors there. Actually, none of my stuff I use them for anymore. But back when the stuff that I guarantee none of you guys have ever seen, I hired video editors in the Philippines to edit. They do good editing, but it's just, it's I'll speak on that later, but I've used video editors, list pullers, cold callers, property managers. So that was a crazy run I've done before. I could spend an hour talking about that. I tried to make our entire property management company run with VAs in the Philippines. Terrible. So we don't do that anymore. And any of you guys working with us, it looks like you can meet our property manager. They're in person. They're here. No Philippines, but look, we're trying stuff. So I've probably gone through 60 VAs in the Philippines trying different roles, like trying like what parts of the business can we use VAs for. And now the kind of point where I'm at is I'm learning like what things do we use VAs for and what things do we use AI for. So that is something I'll document as we get to it. But um, they're just so great. They're so affordable. They work hard and they're really great for all the admin stuff of your business. And also, if you read Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, one of the first hires all of you guys should make is an assistant. You don't need to hire a full-time $60,000 a year in the States assistant for your first assistant. You can get a VA in the Philippines, pay them like $100 a week, and it can save you so much time. So I recommend to almost, all of you guys, depending on where you're at, getting a VA to be your life assistant. It'll buy you back time. So I won't go down that rabbit hole, but they're great. The onlinejobs.ph. Of course. All right. So we got a house under contract. This is the part that'll matter more to my investors in the group here when you get a house under contract. So I'm going to just draw a contract. What is this contract we are getting? It is a purchase and sale agreement. That's it. Just one contract, us to the seller. Purchase and sale agreement. We're not realtors, we're not brokers, so there's not a bunch of disclosures we have to sign. Once we have the purchase and sale agreement under contract, there's a couple things that happen. So Antonio and I documented it today, posted sometime next week, but Antonio, cut me off at any point if I get it wrong. Antonio deals with this side of things way more, but as soon as the house is under contract, or really getting under contract, we send our GM to walk it. So it gets sent to our GM. Our GM gets the contact owner for contact info for either the seller or whoever they need to speak to get access to the property. Sometimes it's a lockbox. Sometimes they got to meet someone. They figure that out. So our GM is our boots on the ground to walk the property. They go to the house. I'm making this up as I go, the visuals to draw. So just bear with me. Just kind of draw on the flow. Gets sent to our GM. Our GM goes and walks the house. They're in the house. There they are. Okay, bear with me. So our GM walks the house, and they do a couple things. The first thing they do is they get a QB Casa scan. QB Casa. This is a huge hack we have picked up on this last year that actually was brought to us by our GM. It was her idea to start doing. But QB Casa, you scan a house with your phone and gives you the exact square footage and gives you a footprint of the house and also the dimensions of the house. So you can calculate extremely accurate remodel quotes. So that was a problem. Antonio and I have lost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars because of incorrect remodel bids for the early part of our career, just because this is how the process would go. We go walk the property with our contractor, the guy who would remodel it. He'd look up, he'd look down, he'd look around the room, he'd poke the wall, and he'd be like, yeah, 40,000. And be like, awesome, great. Shook his hand, got under contract, bought the property. Then we get into the process. We've paid him out $40,000, go and walk the house, and it looks terrible. There's like been nothing done because it turns out that $40,000 quote he gave us really should have been an $80,000 quote. So now we're out 40 grand and the house looks terrible and he's losing money on it. So everyone's unhappy. So now what we do is a QB Casa scan, exact to the square foot. And that allows us to get exact material and labor prices because our GM has 6, 7 different crews for quoting out labor prices. And we actually in our basement, I'll show you guys sometime. In our basement, we now are starting to stock up our own material. So we know exactly what material will be for flooring, paint, price per square foot, and then stuff like appliances we always get from local suppliers, regional suppliers, stuff like that. And then labor, we've got 6 or 7 crews. They come to the office, they see the square footage, they go out, walk the property, give us a bid for their labor. We pick the best one. And that's why we lead with the QB Casa scan. The next thing she gets at the property are photos. So those of you working with us with our Done For You, I know you guys are in here. This is what is happening as you get these text message updates from Antonio or Babs. But she gets photos. This is just, we could go off of her word in QB Casa, but photos and videos makes it. I mean, obviously, you need photos and videos of everything. Some important things to get photos and videos of: the electric meter on the house. You want to pull that because if the house does not have a meter, you got to get the city involved at one point. So you got to mark up your electrical costs for getting the house done because that's just going to delay things. And so always get the meter, check the meter, force whoever's walking the house to get a photo of the meter, check your HVAC, plumbing, if you can't have someone camera the sewer line, roof, check that there's no moisture in the attic, check the age of the roof. So it's a full top to bottom inspection of the property after the QB Casa, checking the essential systems. Because once we know square footage, we need to verify the essential systems. So that's what she does. She goes through, same thing in every house. In our market, we're checking foundations. If there's something with the essential systems she is unsure about, we will send a professional, someone who's licensed in that trade, to get us a more accurate quote. Because we can quote out the QB Casa stuff easy. We can quote out most of the essential system stuff easy. If our GM sees something that is, maybe she's unsure about, she's got vendors ready to go. She sends out and verifies it. What this is doing is getting us an exact remodel bid. So the last thing she delivers to us is a remodel bid. It is a live bid. Now, notice I've not talked about what we are actually doing with this property. Are we keeping it? Are we selling it? What are we doing? Regardless if we are keeping it or selling it to one of the big buyers in our market or selling to one of you guys who are working with us on the Done For You stuff, it's the same thing every property. Because if we're buying it, we want to know what the bid's going to cost. If we're selling it to one of our buyers, we don't want them to beat us up on price. So we send the deal with a built out bid and scan. And then if it's going to you guys got to know what you're paying for on the deal. So that's the procedure. Any deal after it gets under contract. A couple things that can happen after you get the remodel bid. If the numbers don't work for the deal, Antonio will renegotiate with the seller. So either upon walking, we might discover, hey, we really got to get this lower, or upon sending it to our lender, for those of you or buyers of ours who are working with a lender, there might be issues with the lender on the actual price and remodel and projected ARV. So we got to get the house lower. So we renegotiate, just an addendum to the contract to change the price. No big deal there. I would say, Antonio, what percentage of the time when you go to renegotiate, do you actually get the renegotiation? Do you win it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to figure out. Like when we're underwriting a deal, we want to know 75%, we're following the 75% rule, as in when we buy it and do the remodel, will we force appreciate it that 25%. So hold on, there's a better way to say it. We want to make sure our purchase price plus the remodel is 75% of the market value. This makes it so when we're done with the deal, we can roughly refinance out all or most of our cash so we can make sure it's going to the next deal. Or if we are using hard money or private money, that makes sure we can pay off majority or all of the hard money or private money we're using. And we're left with, say 10 to 20% of our cash out of pocket in the deal. So that's just us making sure. And on top of it, even if we're just cash buyers, we'd still want that because that means every deal we touch, that 25% of equity is a non-taxable increase to our net worth. So everyone's so fixated on cash flow. But honestly, nowadays, Antonio and I's relationship with our portfolio is more balance sheet focused than P&L on the monthly rent roll. So what do I mean by that? So I'll talk on that, and I think it's typically the longer you can go without touching your cash flow and being okay with no cash flow, the bigger portfolio you can grow. So for us, what I meant by balance sheet versus monthly P&L, cash flow per door when leveraged, $50 to $250 a month on a good deal, great, whatever. But on the balance sheet, every deal we touch, that 25% equity we left in the deal, we didn't put it in the deal. So every deal we touch, our net worth is going up 30, 40, $60,000. So our mentality right now is making sure we don't become over leveraged. We make sure we're more than covered for covering our mortgage payments. And we just want to get more of that. We want to get more of those huge swings to our net worth by $60,000 every deal we buy and remodel and watch it grow on a balance sheet because a couple things are happening. Even on deals you're not cash flowing, it's principal and interest. So I have a video. It's going to be posting on Friday. I encourage all you guys to watch it. Yes, shout out to me. I didn't do the premiere thing on it, but I underwrote a deal that we just had to do an eviction and we did a terrible remodel. It was just kind of an awful deal from the ownership aspect. We negatively cash flowed. Antonio, I calculated it, negative $70 a month. However, it was Columbia. But a couple of things, the equity position we have in it is great. We basically added 70 grand to our net worth in it. So it was a home run deal from that point. Really should have been less because we should have done a more expensive remodel. I'll get into it on that video on Friday that it's scheduled to post. But negative cash flow $70. However, we still got all our loans are principal and interest. So we still got progress on the principal payment. We got that value add. We were able to leverage the property, pull our cash out, and it got into another deal that was a little bit better. So it balanced out from the cash flow perspective. And the fact that we're making progress on our principal, balance of our loan, and you factor in a little bit of the appreciation. I broke it down in the video. I just encourage all you guys because as you grow your portfolio, you will have evictions. You'll have negatively cash flowing deals. They happen. And that's why it's so important for you to understand all the dimensions a deal is increasing your net worth and helping you achieve, financial invincibility. This is partially me telling this to myself because doing that video made me have to walk through and see like, okay, did this deal that just lost me, say, minus $70 every single month, is it still helping me get to my financial goals? And when you break down all the other ways you're winning, the answer for me was yes. So that's just, and in a lot of markets too, it's hard to cash flow a bunch. So that's my point on cash flow and the 75% rule. Back to our flow. After a house gets under contract, it immediately goes to our title company. So here, and why do we immediately send to the title company before we know what's going on? Some wholesalers, some investors, they'll kind of do some slimy stuff where they won't send it to the title company until they either know they have a buyer or know they can close on it. Don't do that. Real professionals, real estate professionals, the day you get under contract, you send it to the title company. The title company, they're the ones making sure that you can legally buy the property, making sure that before closing, anybody who has claim to the property, like a bank, the city, liens, heirs, brother-in-law, whatever, divorce, messy stuff, they make sure it's cleaned up. So that way when you close, you get a clean title. Title is just the chain of ownership, verifying that, hey, you bought this house, it's your house. Lenders will need it. So it's as you finance the deal, title's got to be clean. So immediately get a title. The quicker you get a title, quicker you can close. So all our deals go to title right away. All right. So here we are. We got a remodel bid under contract at the title company. I will walk through what happens when we close on it for our own deals. So after it closes, I'm going to probably start a fresh one. I'm going to erase everything and I'll talk about what happens after we close on a property. And some notes on financing our properties. I will be a bit more public about this in the coming weeks as we get more experienced with it. But Antonio and I, if you watch all of our videos, we talk about, you buying cash and you refinance on the back end. We've been doing that for the last 3 years, and something that is changing now is we are experimenting with private money, but specifically private money that only works with extremely, how they put it, seasoned investors. So their requirements are they will only lend to investors who have done like a minimum of, what is it, like 20, 30 deals in the last year. So yeah, so and even that, it's a maybe. So private money is much more along the lines of handshake money than it is bank money. As in, this person, yeah, they care about the deal, but they want to look at you, like, what are your finances like? How good are you doing deals? And it's much harder to get private money, but when you do get it, it's extremely favorable. So the private money we are experimenting with to finance our deals basically covers purchase price and remodel, and it's only like a 12%, and like the points are minimal. And we're experimenting with this because basically, yeah, as is doing our BRRRR, we're able to buy, refinance, move on, whatever, to the next deal, and it's great. But with this, we're going to see how it goes. Basically, there's no cap on it, but it took 3 years of us buying deals and getting experience to even be first even to be considered by these kinds of investors. So I won't touch too much on the financing side of things, but for those of you trying to figure out, like, okay, I get all of what you just walked through, you found a great deal, how do you finance it? For you guys, your best option is finding a DSCR lender who can finance 85% of the purchase price and remodel. Shoot me a message in school after if you want to get plugged in some. Correct. So that's a fantastic option. So you do have to bring cash to the table, but if you do your numbers right, you can still pull out all your money if you do a lot of marketing. But with that scenario, still plan on leaving some money in the deal, but you're still gonna be leverage going into it. So it's not as cash intensive as the way we got into it, of literally buying your first deal in cash, fronting all the risk. That's one option. That there is 100% financing for hard money, but it's really expensive. But really, those are your options when you're starting out, outside of buying your first deal in cash. And then typically private money lenders, the ones like I'm talking about, operate more like a credit line where they need from like it feels more like getting a credit line from a community bank, as in they want to see your experience. They're going to check your finances and your liquidity. So it's great, but it takes a lot of time to get there. So I'll talk about that more in the future. Y'all can post questions about it in the school community, and I'll fill y'all in real quick before I move on. All right, cool. Now let's talk about after we close on a house. So a couple of things. I actually got to witness it today. I love watching it. Our GM has her office in the back of the office here. Our title company is in the front. Our GM gets a heads up as stuff is closing from the girls of the title company. So our girl Kate will literally go down to her office and sit down with our GM Babs and go through what's in the closing log for what's coming up, and they'll talk, and Babs makes sure she knows what's coming up so she can have the crews ready, materials ready, all of this stuff. So she actually has a pretty active relationship with the title company, so she knows when stuff is closing, because the last thing you want is to close on a property and be scrambling for a contractor. So Sawyer, I don't know if you're in here, but that's one thing we're trying to make sure doesn't happen. Is he's under contract, the lending's going through, the deal is great, he's getting a lot of flaky contractors, and I do not want to see him close and scramble for contractors. We've done that so many times. It costs us money, and it makes real estate 10 times as stressful. So that's something we do now. Learned mistake. So now when we close, immediately we know what's going on. So what is happening when we close on that property, and who is doing what? So a note on that. So I know the point of this is to talk about our company flow with like our employees, stuff like that. I completely left out a huge part of this whole system. Lindsay, our assistant. She's our assistant, but she's really our CFO and chief of staff. That entire process I just listed out, with going under contract, getting the title company, doing the remodel stuff, and closing. she is the one getting up every day and making sure stuff is moving closer to that. So as far as making sure stuff closes, following up the title company, Lindsay is the one coordinating with Antonio, buyers, sellers, and making sure the process closes. So through all of that, kind of the arrow parts, the in-between parts, that's being handled by Lindsay. And the stuff like I listed earlier, payroll, Lindsay. My email, fully handed off by Lindsay. Really, her responsibilities it's everything from making sure closings are happening, payroll's going out, mortgages are getting paid, properties are closing. Babs has all she needs for the information. Babs is our GM, and she's the glue, the in between for everything. And it makes it so where if I don't wake up tomorrow, Antonio doesn't wake up tomorrow, basically Lindsay keeps the business running. So I can make a whole hour rant about her role, but tonight I'll just leave it at that. So after we close on a property, it is now our house, and it's ugly. It's a house that we need to remodel. So it's I'll draw it like this. This is gonna be a long live, guys. And Tony, if you gotta do anything, you're good. That's our ugly house. So we just bought it. It's a day of closing. We closed on the property. I'm gonna get a sip of water and then keep going. It's hot in here. Yeah, as long as all expenses are projected to be less than 70 to 80% of ARV. Yeah, correct. I mean, look, I know a lot of people in our market, and most markets, like 70%. Personally, like we're okay with 75 to 80, just because we'd rather have wider criteria and just go after more. Yeah, and plus, like we know we underwrite conservatively on the ARV. Like we'd rather go for volume and then be conservative on the ARV and plan for like 75. But yeah, for your first few deals, if you're a newer investor, be more strict on that 75% rule and fully be okay. I tell this all the time. So a lot of people ask me like, hey, like, do you post all these deals where you're pulling out as much money as you put in, if not more? And a lot of people are like so focused on the if not more part. I blame Nate Barger. Every video he posts, he shows people pulling out so much more than they put in. The reality is that's like 1 in 10 deals for us. And those are the deals we prioritize for ourselves. If you're emotionally okay with leaving some money in the deal, everything else is upside. And I think that's far more scalable long-term for a portfolio, just because if your criteria is too narrow, you can only get so many deals. So back to this deal, we just bought it. It's ugly. Let's just say we bought it for 50K. So I'll also kind of touch on the numbers here. We bought it, we closed. Lindsay is making sure Babs is in the loop on everything, as well as the title company. But the day of close, Babs will go out there, we'll change the locks, throw in a lockbox. First thing that gets done. From there, Babs will make sure utilities are handed to our property management company. So utilities are not handled by us. Like it doesn't go into our name or our LLC. It doesn't go into our clients or our client's LLC. It goes into our property management company. They handle utilities because it makes a transition from remodel to tenant, fully handled by property management. So our GM and property manager have a very, very active relationship, because along the way from remodeling to getting it to, I'm gonna draw a big arrow because I'm gonna draw everything that happens in between, to a nice new house. So I guess the video is going a little different today, the live. I'm talking about the flow and also employees. So I know I talked about employee structure, but we're going to keep going with this. So this process from bought it for 50K to done, and it's worth, let's just say, keeping the numbers simple, I'll say 100K just to keep it simple. 100,000. All right. This process. So closing day, Babs gets the keys, changes the locks. From there, depending on if it's working with one of our clients and they're like, and Babs gonna have to coordinate with a draw schedule, she will get a contract signed between us and the client that we're doing the remodel for. Even if it's client through school or just someone in our market we're doing a remodel for, we get a signed scope of work, and it is broken down by line item, and we can also throw in a draw schedule, so that way we know, hey, when XYZ gets done, we get paid this much. And a lot of times that is what we have to do, because if you're using a hard money lender, you have to work with when they can pay out. So we have to do the remodel in line with that. So gets the contract signed, and then if it's a deal for our own portfolio, we don't get a signed contract. We have a scope of work we're aware of, and we keep in Basecamp. So Babs uses a software called Basecamp to manage all of our projects going on. I can go in there at any point to check on what's going on. Lindsay goes in there to make sure files are up to date. It's also where we keep all of our closing files. When we close on a property, we throw the HUD, the settlement statement, everything, insurance documents, mortgage statement, mortgage docs, loan docs, whatever, all gets thrown into the jacket in Basecamp. And then Babs as well, all of her active remodels are kept in Basecamp. Just a nice, Amazon was literally built with Basecamp, so it works great. So that's what she uses for managing all of our different remodels for ourselves and for clients, whoever. So this process along the way, as she gets it done, when she needs to get paid, so I'll just speak for our remodels. I'll just touch on our remodels. When she needs to get paid for something, say paying the guys on Friday or buying material, she has a credit card. That credit card is monitored by our assistant, Lindsay. Lindsay is making sure it populates in QuickBooks. And then for paying the guys out, Babs has access to checks and can write checks from our remodel operating account. And then Lindsay is watching all that, making sure it is tracked. So from there, that is the process of the weekly payouts to making sure the remodel is getting done. Babs coordinating with Lindsay, making sure stuff gets paid. As things come up, if we have to change anything, that's typically the only time I get involved in a remodel. But perfect scenario, there's no reason why myself or Antonio has to get involved in a remodel. Babs goes to Lindsay to get paid. Babs goes to property management for all the in-between stuff like utilities, to the point of listed. And there's no reason I need to be involved until it's done, or I'm going out to make content about it, just being serious about it right there. And we trust her so much with the whole process. We don't really have to, micromanage. All right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that process, it's because Babs and Lindsay handles making sure everyone gets paid. Babs, the other thing is once Babs is done with the remodel, the final check of quality is our property management company, and they have an extremely high standard now for what they're willing to rent. So then they go back and forth with Babs to make sure all the details are done. And the last thing, really the only involvement we have, which is covered really when we underwrite the deal and it's saved in our CRM, is what we want to rent the place for. So property management knows what we need to rent the place for, and they go from there. Any issues property management has typically goes through Lindsay or Babs before it even gets to us. We only hear about it bi-weekly on our touch base meetings. So this whole process, this is the remodel. I thought I was going to add more in here, but I just ended up talking through it. When we're done with the remodel, say we put in 25 grand. I'm just using simple numbers, just keeping it simple. We put in $25,000. Now the house is worth 50 grand. So we're all in 75. Okay, this is the actualization of the 75% rule. 75, and now it's worth 100. That's the 25% value add I was talking about. And that is actually how we justify the salary until we started doing remodels for other people for our GM, is that cash flow won't pay for our GM's payroll. But the value add here, on paper, that's the ROI for having a GM run all your jobs. Last thing I'll just touch on, property management. Already covered that, but this house is now remodeled and it's handed off to property management. Long-term ownership of the property. Property management handles leasing the place, collecting rent, evictions, maintenance, checking on properties every quarter, preparing for winter, preparing for summer. Anything above $350 gets pushed to Babs, our GM, not us. So a lot of people think that just because they hired a property manager, now their whole portfolio is passive. The reality is there's going to be stuff that your property manager can't or won't deal with. So that's where our GM is that filter for that. And then for actually monitoring our GM, our property manager, monitoring that our properties are cash flowing, mortgages are getting paid, work orders are getting done, and reconciling our finances around our books on our property management, that's Lindsay. She's keeping an eye on that. So that, in my opinion, is the only structure in which property management, like owning properties, becomes passive, is once you have property manager, and GM, and then really an assistant. Because otherwise, a property manager can still blow you up just like a tenant. You got 50 houses, your property manager can be texting you almost daily. So that's our whole flow of all of that. Kind of went a little bit more. I think I kind of went a little bit into the weeds, but that's start to finish from our deals and why I'm not directly involved in the day to day. And Antonio, all he has to think about is closing deals. So yeah, do you guys have any questions about all that I just dumped or anything I didn't go into? Oh, the refinance. Sorry. One thing, the refinance process. I'll speed run it. So as once we're in the last 2 weeks of the remodel, we send it to our DSCR lender. DSCR lender goes. She has most of our paperwork, but she goes back and forth with us through my email. My email is monitored by Lindsay. So Lindsay handles most of the refinance process. When we need to send an appraiser, that's handed off to our property manager. Our property manager coordinates with the appraiser to make sure they get out there. And then actual coordination on scheduling the closing date for the refinance, which will be a cash out refi for 75 to 80% of the market value. So we get our 75K out of the deal. That's really handled by Lindsay. I just got to show up for the closing. It's a remote online notary. I can go into more detail on that if y'all want, but yes, please ask away. Yeah. Are you in Facebook? Okay. Yeah. That's a good market. I'd say for the Facebook groups, you got to join as many of them as you can. Typically, the best ones are the ones that require you to wait. So they require you to fill out a form and wait. Join the Facebook groups. If you're able to go to the actual meetups around there, or I would go to them. If you go to the tax sales, I'd go to them. And then title companies, calling title companies, being like, hey, I got some deals. Who are your biggest buyers? Title companies, most by default, the front desk lady will just be like, great, another wholesaler and shoo you away. So that's they don't give you numbers, but they'll take your number. You got to put on all your charm and be like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Like, ask them their name, how's their day going. You got to be really sweet and tell them like, "Here's my name, email, phone number. Please send it to all your buyers." And then you can even ask them like, "What realtors, what brokerages work with the most investors?" And they can give away that info. They're like, "Hey, like the market. What are the big brokerages around here that work with investors?" And they can give out that info. They can't disclose who's doing the closings at their company. So call the brokerages and realtors. Realtors can be good for JVing. I would probably have never said that 2 years ago until I've seen the number of deals realtors have done with Antonio. So realtors and brokerages are a good source, but you got to remember a lot of these realtors, brokerages, title companies, and Facebook groups are used to seeing so many wholesalers just jumping in, being like, I got deals, I need buyers. They're fatigued of seeing that. So you kind of have to, put a little personality in it and be a bit more composed and professional. But yeah, Facebook, title companies, realtors, brokers, even Reddit. But it's a grind because, there's a point about 2 years ago where I thought we had all the buyers in our market. And then all of a sudden, Antonio goes to a tax sale and we find, two of our biggest buyers for that quarter. And another thing, I don't, are you guys in your market or you out of state? A weird way to find buyers. Drive around your area, see who's doing remodels, go up to the guys and ask them who their boss is, who they're working for, ask them for their number. And that's actually how we got like a few of our buyers in Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah, and then bigger pockets is good as well, but it's a hustle because a lot of buyers once they have their a couple of wholesalers, a couple of realtors, a lot of them aren't that active and trying to find new ones. And it's so funny, you guys saying like you're having a hard time finding buyers. I was just working with someone in the other community last week who's in a similar market to you guys. He's in Illinois, but he's not south of Chicago. He's I think more north. But he's saying like, man, I can't find any wholesalers. So there's some disconnect. Wholesalers can't seem to find buyers. Buyers can't seem to find wholesalers. But you just got to put in the reps. You just got to do the numbers. Like the more people you speak to, realtors, brokerages, title companies, whoever, you just got to start putting in the reps, like driving around your market, like I said, going to the tax sales, goaded. Um, mhm, a buyer. And going to the Zillow for rent by owner, call the for rent by owner and be like, hey, so you got this house for rent. You want to buy any more for your area? Really good. Indeed. It's definitely changed. When we started, Antonio, like you remember, we'd get 5 houses under contract and we'd move one. And then we started finding more buyers and we'd get five under contract and move like three. And as we got more buyers, we could start moving more deals. Antonio got better at getting deals under contract. And now got to the point where we're at now, where it's like it either goes to us, our clients, or buyers. Obviously, our dispo rate is much, much higher because we just have so many more people for those deals. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry, go on. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And on that, another thing, we're an interesting thing as well. Relationships with lenders helps with this book because buyers, a good amount of them, unless it's just like the biggest buyers in your market, need to use lenders and understanding the different loan products of your lender, of the lender that your buyers are using, helps you understand the type of deals you need to go after. So for us, it started with we understood just what our buyers, the type of deals our buyers went after. The next step above that, understanding the type of deals the lending works for. And for us, it's been understanding either the 100% financing product she has or the 85% financing. Okay, what deals works great for that? Once we know that, the bank's the one who closes and pays your assignment fee at the end of the day. So you got to understand the lending on your deals to close on that. And that some of our back when we were primarily just wholesaling, like some of our best months were almost 100% just deals we were playing off of our lender. Correct. So yeah, I don't see that many people talking about that for wholesaling, but you good relationship with lender, way easier to dispo. So yes. Yes. Good catch. It's called an assignment agreement. So you have your contract with the seller, and you right now have the right to buy this house. This contract gives you the right to buy their house. You want to assign your right to buy the house to the buyer for a fee if you're wholesaling it. Or sometimes we don't even throw in a fee if we're just trying to assign it, just moving the right. You're just moving your right to buy it and you use an assignment agreement. It's called an assignment agreement. And one thing you got to look up for your state, depending on the state, there's certain disclosures you need to include in your purchase and sale agreement if you're planning to assign it to a buyer, and certain disclosures in the assignment agreement. In Oklahoma, you have to disclose to the seller, like, hey, I am assigning this property to a buyer or someone else. So look up for your state what those are. But purchase and sale, assignment agreement. You can buy it, you assign it to them. If that makes sense. Good question. I'm gonna check the chat for questions. See if YouTube has questions. Oh wow, yeah, you guys. Do you always have the exit strategy? Oh, y'all can't hear Antonio. Whoops. All good. Um, they'll figure it out. Yeah, I probably should put the note for next time. If I go live on YouTube and I'm screen recording the school, put the link to school on YouTube so that way they're not just confused. Whoops. Um, Actually, I'll do that right now. But yes, yeah. Sorry about that. But there's a question I was going to answer. Oh, exit a deal. Always having an exit for a deal. So yeah, we typically like if we don't have an exit for a deal and we're under contract, we don't like to go past, like 20 days into escrow because it wastes the title company's time and everyone else's time. But we generally like within the first 24 hours of getting a house under contract, we know if we're going to buy it, we're going to assign it to someone or move it to one of our done for use. Yeah. How do you write off overseas wages? That's a conversation we're actively having with our accountant. Yeah, that's something that we need to backdate and figure out, and I will keep me accountable on it. I'll post what we do with it, but I don't know exactly how she's been throwing it in the ledger. Yeah, so a thing like being fully transparent with you guys. Accounting is one of the areas that we was one of our biggest kind of areas we dropped the ball, but we've gone through two accounts to get all of our stuff up to date and stuff like that. So Hormozy talks about all the time. You could spend 10 hours, say 50 hours a year playing with your taxes, getting all the write-offs and learning about accounting, or you can just pay an accountant. I'm in this pay an accountant category. I want to loosely under. It's so funny because I almost got a degree in accounting. I got a degree in finance, but I almost went the accounting route. But you just want to understand enough of the accounting to understand the mechanics of it and how it affects your business. Me personally, I don't want to know all the accounting code. I would way rather pay an accountant to just figure it out for me, so I can just focus on growing the business. So that's why I just say hire a CPA. Don't try to figure it out on your own. So that's my answer to that question. Yes, correct, correct. Exactly. That's my answer to all of that. Yeah, defer to your CPA. Yeah. But start it early as well. The one thing I can say is start bookkeeping early. Like get a QuickBooks set up, start your bookkeeping early, reconcile weekly if you can. It'll save you a lot of billable hours handing off your books to an accountant. So please start it early. Someone was about to ask a question? Yes. 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 Okay. Yeah, so for that, on the 100% financing, there's a couple of things. So the actual loan product that we recommend every client use depends a lot on your situation, either on your real estate experience or your liquidity. And we're actually finding the 100% financing does have expenses that you got to pay to to borrow the money. Those expenses can be around like 11 or 12 grand for the 100% financing. So it's 100% purchase and remodel. But we are starting to go on. But we're starting to find that the loan product that might actually work better for a majority of investors is the 85% financing. So by our blanket answer to people on how much liquidity they need to like do a done for you deal with us is going to be higher than what they will actually have tied up in the deal. So we just safely say you really shouldn't be messing or you really shouldn't sign up for the done for you if you don't have at least 30,000 liquid for the deal itself. As far as our fees to do that service, it is client to client based on how many deals you do with us and where we're at as far as fulfillment. So that's something why our the link is just a book a call because now for August, we're we're pretty filled on deals. So as far as answering our servicing fees, that's really a time of year, case by case, and it's not always publicly disclosed because it changes. But a lot of it is as far as the actual cost of the deal. If you're using financing, yeah, 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 um, yeah. So So to kind of like put it in a nutshell, the for the actual liquidity needed for the deal itself, that is contingent to the lending, but both lending products, 30 grand, just because I think you should always be more liquid than the bare minimum liquidity the lender requires. So that's for the actual deal itself. As far as their servicing fees, we have packaging fees. Like if a client signs up for 4, 8, or 12 houses, there's a certain payment structure and fee structure. And then if a client is just signing up for like two at a time, something like that, there's a certain fee and payment structure. But to I guess, without saying the exact prices on everything, our what's called our guarantee, our refund guarantee is if all of the lender's cost and fees plus purchase plus remodel plus our servicing fees is not less than the appraised value. If it is not less than the appraised value, we refund all of our servicing fees. So we like to give ourselves a good amount of liability for the result on the deals there. But as far as getting the exact numbers, just I don't have a link in here. I think there's a link in the. Yeah, I need to figure out where I put that link. I think if you go to like the pinned post or one of my recent posts, I'll make up an announcement after this school is posted. And I'll pin it or something. I'm trying to think where I can. Oh, it's in my bio. Yeah, the link in my bio. You can book a call with that, and you can get. Yeah, I mean Charlie or Michael, they break down the pricing on all that. But honestly, guys, full transparency on that as well. That is our way of filtering who like we bring into our market because there's a fixed supply of deals, and our team can only handle so much. So that's why we have it done for you. And I've talked about in the videos when I started posting online and growing the school community and all of this. I thought this was going to grow our acquisitions. I thought it was going to be a lot of people being like, I'm a realtor, I want to sell this deal, or I'm a landlord. But it turns out most of the content I made attracted buyers and investors. And that has basically been what we've done with social media is just enhance our dispo and get to bring in investors. And this is our organized way of doing it. So I just think there's enough coaches. So that's why all the info is free. So all the info is out here is free. And that is our paid offer for online. So full transparency on what we're selling out here. So information's free, integration, you know, time is money. We charge for that. Thank you. Yes. Um. So why don't you want to double close? Double closing is not too bad. This like it's actually pretty easy if you have a good if you have a good relationship. It is, but I mean, with this, yeah, we don't mess with states that have like the really strict laws. I mean, Oklahoma's decently strict, but we still get away with it. A good thing you can do, a lot of title companies host like quarterly, what's it called? They host events where you can go and learn about title law and stuff like that. A lot of times, those events coordinate networking those people can tell you how you should do it. Maybe there's you get your real estate license. Maybe that's the way you go. But I would say get connected with people in your market that know that stuff better than me. Yeah, so I the module in the free breaks it down, but loosely, an hour outside of a major city, population less than 300K, median home price below 250, strong rental demand, housing units. So I like to have about 50% or more of the housing units being renter occupied. And then from there, median household income below 50,000. That'll loosely get you into these kind of manufacturing based, industry based economy, little pocket markets, military bases, workforce housing. So that's how I find it. And conversation with Claude or GPT can find you plenty of markets. That's how we go about it. Alrighty, I'm gonna check for questions on YouTube. I don't think they can hear any of you guys, so all good there. I'm gonna look for more questions. All right. No lockbox if there's tenants. No lockbox if there's tenants. Yeah, yeah, you just coordinate a showing time with the tenant. Yeah, we don't really put lock boxes on during close unless the property's vac. Well, unless the property. I mean, wait, Antonio, how often are we putting lock boxes on any of these houses we're walking? Most of them, it's a realtor's lockbox or like the wholesale's lockbox, or just we don't really. Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Rod pointed out their property manager will handle showing stuff like that. Uh, Actually, like though, like most of the houses we walk that are vacant do not have a lockbox. So the seller's out of state. They're old. They inherited. They don't know what's going on. And I rarely think we put a lockbox on vacant properties before we close, just because it kind of puts a little flag to the area of like, hey, I'm vacant, and so we don't mess with lockboxes typically until after close. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, being as if you can be as transparent as possible, being like, the terminology we have used in the past is my partner, and we like to if we're saying our partner is going out to walk the property, it was always so much easier to say when like we genuinely felt like when it was our guy Gabriel out of the properties when we didn't really know who he was, and we say to a seller, "Our partner's going out of the property," it felt sketchy. But as we got to know Gabriel, it took so much anxiety off of us speaking to sellers. Because like Gabriel's like basically our partner. Like if he's the buyer on it, but I would feel no guilt telling the seller like, "Hey, my partner's going to go check it out." Because I'm like, "Yeah, Gabriel is my partner." So that's also another thing. Is the better relationship you have with your buyer, the more confidence you'll have with telling the seller what your buyer needs. So just don't neglect that. Of course. Alrighty. Good questions. Any others? All right, 7:31 was good and live. Yeah, that's so funny. I just looked over in YouTube and they're all like, "We can't hear Antonio," and then I posted the link and everyone's saying it's the link to hear Antonio. So we'll figure it out next time. But if there's not any other questions, I'm going to wrap up tonight. And what I'm going to start doing, if you guys, I'll post on Mondays, a post for the live, And if y'all can start just dropping your questions throughout the week, then when I come onto the live, I can be queued up with a bunch, or you can just bring your questions to the live. But I'm going to experiment with it. Just whatever is the most. All right, school questions. Yeah, of course. Oh, wholesaling. Actually, so funny or not, the way I paid for probably about 3 months of rent, and our first batch dialer subscription was with garage sailing. I'd go to garage sales and estate sales. I'd buy, whatever I could. I'd get paid like something like a quarter for a whole box of children's toys, and I'd flip them on eBay. I looked like a complete psycho, like to my roommates, because I'd be coming in with like a bunch of children's toys. They're like, they'd be having like sorority girls over, and I'm just like in the living room, like posing like stuffed animals. I was a freak in college, all right. So I flipped stuff with garage sailing, and then I was about to start flipping couches, and then I had a buddy who flipped cars. Wholesaling is flipping houses without actually having to put money into it, really. So yeah, you can flip houses, you can flip anything, and that's literally how I got. That's how we funded starting our wholesaling and real estate career, was flipping stuff from garage sales. So yes, you can flip cars. I would just say on that note, the best route to go with wholesaling, honestly, is to feed you as an investor. The best path of wholesaling is for it to feed you as an investor, not just to make it as a wholesaler, because I just think it's the only route. Like, wholesaling is really hard to scale unless you become an investor and it feeds your portfolio. If you go the car route, then really you should focus on making high income. That's your hustle. Okay, flipping cars, park that cash in real estate. That's always my blanket advice: is get a high paying W-2, 1099, like a hustle, whatever, put the cash in real estate. Getting into real estate through wholesaling is the hardest way to get into real estate, in my opinion. You're better off working a good paying job and networking with wholesalers and realtors. Make them do the hard work, and you just have the cash and close on the deals. But again, that's just from my experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He wholesales land, but I think you can take that and apply the same thing to wholesaling. Like, if you're going to go knock 100 doors, would you rather knock 100 doors, kind of knowing what the person who buy those houses wants, or knowing exactly what they want? So I think wholesaling land, especially, you need to understand your buyers, because these are like big developers, and you need to know exactly what they're buying first, because it's a lot more specific than just houses. So that makes a lot of sense. But I think you should apply that same kind of strategy to finding houses. Like, what do my buyers want? I'm gonna go find it for them. Versus, this is a cheap house. Who wants it? But yeah, good point, Andy. All right, checking the chat one more time. Looks like you guys are signing up. Just make sure it is an IPA, income producing asset. I thought you meant like an IPA. Just kidding. Awesome. All right, thanks, Rod. All right, well, thank you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Yeah, glad you all were here. Enjoy the rest of your evening. All right, bye. Oh, hey, YouTube. Let me stop screen sharing. I'm new to this, guys. The whole streaming. How do guys? Here we go. All right, YouTube. I'm sorry if you didn't hear Antonio during that, but if you want to engage in the live next time, let's do the school. I'll try seeing what I haven't played with the actual live process with YouTube. School's just nice because it's a free one. Link's in there. The link is also in my bio for YouTube. But it seems to be a pretty active format as far as engaging with you guys. So join that for next time. I'll keep learning. I literally, guys, to figure out, like, I was 5 minutes before when I was scheduled to do the live, figuring out how to do the YouTube live. And I did on the same one, the last one. So I will play with YouTube live so I can actually go live on YouTube more and use all the features to make it fun for you. But other than that, guys, those of you who watched, thanks for being here. As always, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you see more of. And those of you watching, please join the school community. Everything I know is in there. I probably got to update it more often, but like I said, education's for free. Integration, we charge. If you want to do us doing your deals, we'll charge that. Education is free. Hormozy said that recently on his live last week, but it's just something that I was told a long time ago, and that's kind of how I built my whole online presence around. So thank you for being here. And if I keep going, I'm gonna start rambling. So I'm gonna sign off. I'm tired. Have a good night, guys. Bye.